Welcome, everybody, to Study Tank. I'm Nonzo, a software developer and community educator, and I'm also an organizer here at Tech Tank. Part of Tech Tank is our Study Tank initiative, which is a virtual space where we get together to discuss concepts related to web technologies and everything around that space. This includes, but is not limited to, data structures and algorithms, web fundamentals, and any web-related topics. Recently, we started our community educators program, which invites members from the community to come on and talk about topics that they are passionate about. I find that the learning journey is really about learning, but it's also about how we effectively communicate the things that we've learned. So tonight we have a very special workshop from Lydia, who's going to be talking to us about Figma's new Devmode and how we can integrate it into our workflows. At the end of the presentation, you'll get a chance to ask some questions and get some new insights about Figma's new Devmode and how we can integrate it into workflows there. So without further ado, let's welcome Lydia.
Thanks for that great intro, Nonzo. Like you've really got that radio voice on, I must say. I'm just gonna go ahead and share screen. So hopefully everyone can see the screen. I'm actually gonna toggle the UI off. So I did drop a link in the chat with the Figma link as well if you wanted to follow along there. So that way we can all interact together. But if not, I'm also going to be sharing my screen, so you can follow along there and just listen in as we go. And so, yeah, Nazo gave a really great introduction on today, but essentially we're going to be talking about dev mode tips and tricks and really simple ways we can integrate Figma's new dev mode into our workflow, and also a little bit of insight into how dev and design can connect. So before we get started, just to give everyone a little bit of an icebreaker question, I wanted, if you are in the Figma and you want to, feel free to pick a sticky, write your name and then your favorite winter snack, or if not, feel free to drop it in the chat. And I think I'm just going to give everyone 3 minutes to do that. I've got this timer in FigJam. I love FigJam for this reason. We also have this lo-fi hip-hop music. So yeah, 3 minutes for everyone. Actually, no, 1 minute. We don't need 3 minutes for that. So 1 minute, if I can adjust that. I guess not. So I'll time it myself. Yeah, 1 minute for everyone to think of their favorite winter snack. And Nonzo, feel free to participate in the chat if you want.
For sure.
If anyone has any issues accessing or editing as well, let me know, or you can just put your answer in the chat. How's the audio, Nonzo? Just curious.
I can't hear it, actually.
Oh, the music?
Yeah.
It's okay. Another day we'll all be able to hear music. I'll just stop that then. Let's see. In the chat. For anyone who just arrived, I'm gonna paste the link to this Figma again. people are already on it. I feel like my chat is definitely lagged. All right, 10 more seconds for everyone.
Excuse me, where do we move our mouses to? Because I'm on there, but I see people moving.
Yeah, so if you're in Figma, you'll be able to access all of this. But if not, you can just listen along and watch on Zoom.
Okay, I'm in it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I see a lot of great answers. My personal favorite is hojicha latte. I don't know if that counts as a snack, but I see wine and cheese, classic. Lots of wine. We've got lots of great minds here that think alike. Chocolate, of course, classic. What else? Ooh, hot chocolate for sure. Oh, gingerbread cookies. I love that. Ooh, mochi. That's an interesting one. Um, Thanks everyone for sharing. I love discovering new snacks this way. But we're actually going to head on to our first topic. So we're going to talk about navigating designs in Devmode. So one thing about Figma is that they're starting with Devmode. It allows us to be able to inspect all of our elements a lot easier. And we were able to do that before, but with Devmode, we have even more features. So for example, let's take some of these components that I took from Microsoft's Fluent design system. And if you click on it, so if you're in Figma actually, click on this, and on the top right-hand corner, you'll be able to see this little toggle. And once you click on that, it'll take you to Devmode where you're able to see the inspect panel. And this is where most of our key operational stuff will lie. So if you look at the bottom here, we have a panel for ready for development. So we've got inspect panel on the right, but on our left side, there is actually a list of things that your designers might have marked as ready for development. And if your designers don't do that already, you can tell them, but essentially all they need to do is click Shift S or create a section, and then right over here, there's a button to click ready for dev. I find this really useful when you just want to quickly mark something as ready for development, because then they can see all of the things, all the layers that are in that section marked as ready for dev. So if it's a really large file, you don't have to scroll the entire file to see exactly which one is ready for development. So for example, here, I've marked this as ready for dev, and on the left-hand panel, you can see the bottom sheet and the card there displayed as ready for dev. Another great thing about this is that it tells you when each design was created, and you can also see and know if there were any changes made to it as well. So this is really great, maybe in a design system, if something has changed and your designer just doesn't really have time to tell you exactly what has been changed, you can quickly see it over here. And this leads on to our next topic, which is about comparing changes, which is another really great feature of the Devmode. So to compare changes, once you click on either one layer or design or two, you'll be able to see on the right-hand inspect panel an option and a button to compare changes. So for example, let's take these two. For anyone who's not on Figma, I'm just going to go over the photo first. So let's say I selected two different sidebar components, and they're just slightly different, right? And you want to know exactly what is different about these two. So maybe they're two different states, right? And what's great about the compare modo is that it tells you exactly what's different. So for example, on the right-hand panel in the layout, you'll see that, oh, maybe this padding is a little bit different. Maybe there's an extra button. And it's really great that it tells you the code. So you'll be able to compare side by side there. So a shortcut to easily compare to item is to hold shift and click compare to design. So let me just demonstrate that for everyone. I'm just gonna click shift. I'm gonna do this. And then on the right-hand inspect panel, compare changes, just click that, bam. There's that modal. And it tells you, here, you have to click on the component itself, and then it'll tell you what exactly is changed from a code perspective. I find really helpful. The other use case of this is actually for components that have been changed or edited recently. And usually if you click on a component that Figma has logged as, oh, there's been a change recently, there is going to be that button to compare versions or compare changes, and you'll actually be able to see exactly what edits were made. So as an example, here's something that I created, just like an ordering page, and the thing that shifted was the side filter. So what you would see as a developer is this updated version on the Figma file. But once you click on it and you select compare changes, you'll be able to see exactly what has been changed since the previous version, which is likely the version that has been built. And it'll tell you exactly what additional steps need to be implemented. So for example, if you see here, it tells you all the layers that have been edited. So maybe there's a text that has been edited, maybe they've removed a text layer, and maybe they've added new sections to the design. And on the right-hand panel, again, it'll show you the code. Another tip for everyone is if you want to see the version history of an entire file, you can do that. All you have to do is click onto like a blank space of your file, and then you drop down on the name, and then you'll have a area that says show version history. And this will be able to help you see all the autosave versions of the entire file. And typically designers will have a naming convention for these versions. So it'll likely tell you information about when this version was created and what has been updated. So that is typically a good practice to follow. So I would like everyone to try it out for themselves now. So for whoever is on the Figma file, I would like everyone to try to compare these two designs. So hold shift and click the two layers. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see compare changes. So let's see. Oops. We might have to work on clicking the actual. Oops. Right, for anyone who's watching, I'll just select it for us so we can both see. All right. Compare changes. And now that we're here, I'd like everyone to write in the chat what you see is different. I'll give everyone 1 minute to do that. Actually, let me go here. Yay. Oh, interesting. I'm just playing around here as well. All right, let's see in the chat. Caption, time, name, yes. Avatar images, new busy message. The red box. True. I think that was removed, yeah. The red box actually usually means that something has been removed. If you see here, and all the items that have been highlighted with a dotted line usually indicates what has been changed. So yeah, all the avatar images have been changed. This tab was removed, and yeah, some content was changed as well. Great job, everyone. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. pretty intuitive in general. Oh, I think this was moved. I'm just gonna move this back for everyone. Oh, I think someone is selecting the panel. If everyone can unselect the Figma panel for me. So just click on a blank space. Yeah, thanks. So then I can just move it back. Amazing. All right, let's go on to the next part, which is all about the inspect panel and copying the code quickly. So for this, I'm just going to use the card as an example. So this card component. So if you click on the card component, in the layer section on the left-hand side, you'll see all the different sections that are incorporated into what the designer has decided to create this component. And I like to think of all these different layers almost as divs. At least that's how I think about it. So sometimes this layer section can help you understand a better way to create a component or formulate that component if it's already not made. So what I like to do first is to break down the design using the inspect panel. So what's really great is that it shows you the box model. So if you're in dev mode, you can click on the component and it actually on your right-hand side shows you all the different metrics and numbers with the typical box model that coders are familiar with. It also tells you the name of that layer and that component, so you know exactly what you're clicking on. And really important is dev resources. So for example, maybe this is a component in the design system. What you can do and what designers or a dev or whoever's managing the design system can do is attach component documentation to any component in the design system. So if you're a dev that doesn't really work on this design system specifically or generating components, but you know this is just an instance of a card that is, it's a pre-made component, you can click here to access the exact documentation, which will usually include the CSS code or whatever class you would typically use to create that. Another great thing is that you can actually switch between your code language on the inspect panel. So as Figma on default offers CSS, iOS, and Android, but you can also get plugins to translate it into different codes. So for example, Figma to Code plugin can generate HTML, React, Tailwind, Tailwind JSX, Flutter, and Swift UI. That is usually very helpful. And as well, you can also change your units automatically here in Figma. So if you click on the toggle button, and I believe most designers use PX and also Figma uses PX, but if you're, I know it's best practice to use REMs. So this was a really handy tool if you just need to convert those numbers quickly. So let's look at the smaller design component within the outer row / div, which is the card component. So like I said, it probably has documentation, and it also allows you to open that component in the design system as well if you want to see what it looks like in the Figma file. So what I mean is go like this, and then this will go to main component, which will open up that design Figma file. Another great thing is that it tells you all the properties. So the different, likely this will be like different states, different variations of this card component. You can also open this component in Playground, which allows you to look at all the different states of this card without changing the design. So I'll go over that in a bit. But before we do that, I wanted to give everyone a preview of what the other languages can look like. And as well, really great with this is that it'll likely tell you all the different color styles that's being used as well. Yeah. And if you are using tokens, it'll show all the different tokens that are used. So it's really simple to know exactly what colors, what text, fonts, and sizing to implement. If you already have a token system in place. Another great thing, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, is that they have an assets panel, which displays all the different assets that are being used for that specific design. So for example, in the car, they're using this horizontal component instance. It's likely either a icon or a small button, but either way, it's something that you can download as an SVG. So this is really handy for little graphics, images, and icons. Yeah, so just to show everyone as well again that you can click on the bigger component, but you can also click on each individual section to see how they've laid it out like so. And so in that example, you also have the preview section and you also have the annotation section. And so you can isolate maybe if it's a really complex design, this is a really great way to isolate and dissect the design that way if you're building it from ground up. Amazing. So now I would like everyone to open up Devmode and inspect either this example or this example using the inspect panel. And I would like everyone to drop in the chat what assets they see. So I'll give everyone like 1 minute for this activity again. And I'll just do it for everyone who's just watching. I wish I had that lo-fi music right now, Nonzo.
I'll see if I could get it up.
No worries if you can't. It's like 1 minute. Everyone has 20 seconds left. I think Zoom should have a lo-fi button just for lo-fi, nothing else. Good job, everyone. Let's see what we've all put in the chat. Oh, we've got a lot of comments. Oh yeah, classic elevator music, amazing. Really good suggestion, Chris. I'll do that next time. I think I tried to do it today, but then they told me I had to restart. So next time. Icons, avatar images, yes. Yeah, and if you look here, you can see also the different type of icons, which is really helpful. And let's look at this one. Yeah, let's look at this component instance, for example, and go all the way to the assets. You'll actually see images and a button. Yep, button and image assets. Yeah, really great. Yeah, super intuitive. Looks like everyone is acing this. So if you have any questions as well, feel free to drop it in the chat or unmute. I will not mind at all. All right, let's move on to the next section, which is about the component playground, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. So let's click on this component here, and we have a button called Open in Playground. And what's really fun about this is that oftentimes components will have different states, right? Especially buttons, all the hover and active states. And sometimes you just want to know exactly what it looks like when you're creating that as a developer. And so in this example, we have different variations of a component. So you can show or hide that more button. We can show or hide that L icon, or we can show and hide that subtext. And this way you can see all the different states of the specific component without affecting the design itself. So you won't freak out when you changed anything. And also, if you guys have theming in place, you can also toggle between the different themes really, really quickly. Yeah. And so for our next activity, I'd like everyone to click on this component and open up component playground and see what other states and variations it has and just drop that in the chat. Let me know if anyone has any questions, by the way. I'm just going to do the same thing for everyone who's just watching on Zoom. Forgot to do this. Okay. I'll give everyone 10 more seconds. And yeah, I can share this Figma to everyone after. All right, I'm just gonna count down because I forgot to do the timer, but finish up your thoughts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we've got variant and light/dark mode. Yeah, dark theme enjoyers are so happy right now. Yeah, I'm assuming by variant you're talking about showing and hiding that preview. Really, really handy, cool tool. I think we just had one more chat. Let me read that. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's move on to our next section now. Right. And this is all about, oops. 1 second. In the next section, we're going to be talking about tech stack integrations, which is really fun. So as a quick activity, I'd like everyone to vote on what tech stack you or your company is currently using in your workflow. So to vote, all you have to do is click this little heart and drag it onto, oh, you might have to, if you're in dev mode, you have to toggle out of dev mode. But yeah, just drag that and place it right into whatever section. And I'll give everyone 1 minute to do this. Yeah, feel free to just drag it out. No need to copy and paste it. Amazing. Good job. I find it really funny that we're all using Jira, but everyone is always complaining about Jira. We love Notion. Ooh, we see some Storybook, which is interesting. And GitLab, really, really cool. All right, thanks for participating, everyone. Let's move on to the nitty-gritty of and the amazingness of tech stack integrations here. So with our Devmode plugins, it gives us a lot of ability to integrate Figma into your coding workflow. So for example, first off, to access Devmode plugins, on the right-hand panel, if you toggle dev mode, you'll also have a panel for plugins. And if you don't have anything saved, it might be empty, but you'll have a few suggested from the community, or if you know a specific one, you can just search it in here and find it. So maybe there's one for Storybook. Yeah, for example, it's right here, and you can save it and pin it to your plugins. But anything, all plugins are something that you can explore. You don't really have to download anything specifically. So that's really nice. Some that I like is Figma to Code and Anima. I think that's really cool. You can also access it through the top right-hand corner. If you click out, if you're in design mode, if you click out into the resources, you'll find the plugins there. Amazing. So I want to suggest some of the plugins that are pretty useful. So GitLab plugin is a way for you to seamlessly upload your designs from Figma to GitLab. Definitely a great place for you to speed up that process and not have to constantly change between platforms. So if you want to learn more about it, you can click this button here, read up on it in your own time. If GitLab is something that you use at your company or in your workflow. Another great one for design systems is Storybook Connect and as well Zeppelin. So this basically allows you to export your Figma designs really easily between these two softwares. And so for Storybook, it would be an easy way to embed stories into Figma and cross-reference. And for Zeppelin, it would be an easy way to export Figma frames into Zeppelin for handoff files for your devs. And moving on to our workflow, there is a lot of different plugins. So for example, we have one for Jira, which is for easy embedment of your Figma files. Same thing with Notion and Slack. As well, they probably have their own notification system with Figma. So if anyone leaves a comment, it'll automatically connect and integrate your notifications that way. The last two, Zoom and Google Workspace. Another great way to integrate Figma into your online meetings is by connecting it to either Zoom or Google Meets. And this basically allows you to almost whiteboard together live. So if you present and you can add a Figma file to the presentation once you've downloaded this Zoom plugin, and you can actually allow everyone to edit at the same time. And it's almost as if you're working on the Figma file together in real time while talking to one another and basically while in Zoom. And this is a really great way to make asynchronous brainstorming really, really fun. Same kind of implementation applies to Google Meets. And as well, Google Docs and Google Slides is just another way to easily embed that Figma file. So in a document, you can see exactly what the Figma file would look like and play around in it, rather than just a link, for example. The last plugin would be our VS Code integration. And for this, it's actually something that you can download in VS Code. So you would have to go onto the side panel for plugins, download Figma. And there are two ways to access the Figma files. So the first is in VS Code. So this is typically what it would look like. And once you've downloaded the plugin, it should pop up here on your left-hand side. And once you've clicked that and you've transported all of the Figma files, just click on the file that's relevant to you, and the Figma will actually pop up here and show you the designs, as well as a mini version of their inspect tool. So you'll see the code. You can toggle between the pages, and you can also see the layers here. So let's take a deeper look at that. So I've just expanded in the pop-up for the Figma and VS Code. But yeah, if you want to see layers, you can see it here. And if you want to alternate between the pages, you could do that on the top bar of that pop-up. And you can also see which one is ready for dev mode, which is really great. Here's another example of what it would look like. Let's say this is something that's ready for dev. You can see below the code, the properties, the dev resources, and assets all laid out there directly in VS Code. So you don't really have to go back and forth between Figma and VS Code that way. The other way to access this is to open a Figma file open the Figma file from Figma, just clicking open in VS Code. Sometimes it doesn't really work. I believe it's still in beta. So the best way is still to just access it through Figma, access it through VS Code, which I think is the most common use case. And that sums all the tips and tricks that I had. I hope this was helpful for everyone. Before I move on, do we have any questions? If you wanted me to expand on anything, feel free. I'll leave like a minute for everyone to kind of gather their thoughts. Yeah.
So Lydia, we did have two questions actually in chat.
Oh.
One of them was from Sammy. When you were talking about components, he asked, can the components go straight to Storybook?
Ooh, really good question. Let me go back here. So I believe this is actually for Storybook stories to be embedded into Figma and not the other way around, but I could be wrong. I don't use Storybook myself, but if you click this button, you can read more about it there.
Nice.
Sounds good. That was answered.
And Nicole asked if you mind if we copy the Figma drafts so that you all can play around with it.
Yeah, 100%. For Figma drafts, what did we mean by that? Like this file or?
I think if you just copy to your drafts, you just literally just create a local copy so it doesn't affect the original file.
Oh, as in saving it?
Yeah, just creating like a copy of it. So
Oh, okay.
if you click on the drop down on Study Tank Workshops,
Yeah.
it will say copy to drafts.
Oh, sorry. All the UIs.
Oh, wait, it doesn't say that. Oh, maybe because you're on Devmode.
Copy to drafts. You mean duplicate?
Maybe it's duplicate, yeah.
Yeah, I can duplicate it and like create a copy.
That's what I did for my courses. Like they ask you to do that. And it doesn't affect the original file.
Ooh. Yeah, I could do that for everyone in a minute. Like right after this meeting, I'll send it over to Nonzo and he can just share it.
Yeah, for sure. I can send that over. And we actually had a really great question from Sammy again. What do you wish developers knew that would make designers' workflows easier?
Ooh, that's a good one, Sammy. Putting me on the spot. What do I wish developers knew that would make a designer workflow easier? I think for me, I would love to learn more about how things are named in the developer code base, so that way I can also match it to Figma, or at least in some way have that consistency between the two. I think another thing as well is it would be really helpful to know how the data is structured, if it's like a really back-end heavy thing or it has a lot of functionality. If we know how the data is structured, that's something that's predetermined. It would be really helpful for designers in general. So yeah, if we can get insight to that before we finalize high fidelity designs, that would be amazing. But in general, I think it's just collaborating together on something and kind of like language sharing. So if there's vocabulary that one person doesn't understand or a tool that one person doesn't understand, just feeling or like taking initiative to kind of introduce those different topics to one another. So yeah, off the top of my head, that's what comes up. But I'm sure there's going to be lots more when I'm in the middle of designing and I'm handing it off to one of the devs and I'm like, why didn't you know to use this specific color and in this specific corner radius? So yeah, my short answer is yeah, those two things.
Yeah, no, the design to developer and vice versa can, like, it could be a tricky landscape to navigate sometimes. And like, I think tools like what Figma is doing, by introducing Devmode, like, are ways that like make it easier. And so hopefully more tools like this pop up in the future. But this is a really, really great integration. And did anybody have any other questions before we wrap up here? Yes, Lisa, feel free to unmute your mic.
Okay, this might be a kind of naive question, but I had only used Figma like a year ago when I did a small course on Codecademy, so that was actually before this Devmode came out. And but I was just wondering, I'm not used to the jumbliness of it. I don't know. I don't know if that sounds silly, but I guess, when I'm coding, I'm sort of used to everything having kind of a linear flow. And, this is kind of like moves all around. So I don't know. Do you have any just really practical tips on that? Like, how do you feel like it took you a little bit to get used to it? The working with Figma? I don't know. Maybe you could say something general about that.
Yeah, no question is naive, by the way. I love all questions. So what did you mean by jumbled? Is it that all the like screens they can be laid anywhere? There's like no like free form?
I guess so. Just like in moving it around. I feel like I really need a giant, super giant screen with this, but I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm not like fluent in it, so.
No, but I totally get it. Yeah. And I think one thing with Figma is that in terms of navigating a lot of screens all at once, arrows would help. So if you're working with the designer and they're creating a flow, I think having arrows pointing to where it starts and where it ends would be really helpful, especially if it's not as intuitive. That's also good for myself to know as well, that kind of like this can seem very daunting. And like, even though to me, maybe I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense, like linear, but really, like, how do you follow this? And creating steps, writing it down, where to go next, and things like that. So I'd say having arrows, and whoever's creating the designs, you can just let them know. Like, I would really prefer to have a lot more labels, where to start, where the next place to look at is, and where it ends. Was there anything else specific that you wanted to bring up?
No, not really. I'll just practice with it. maybe just a week of practice will be good. So, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. It does take a bit of getting used to, and I think as well, because maybe right now, since I'm the one moving it, it might feel a bit chaotic. But I think if you were navigating it yourself and you had a bit of time to sit down and look at everything, it'll make a lot more sense. And yeah, I think just play around with it, see how you feel. Yeah, if you have any questions as well, like after this workshop, feel free to DM me. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks.
Were there any other questions for Lydia? Awesome. Well, first, I want to say a very big thank you to Lydia. Thank you so much for sharing this workshop with us. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone did as well. Before we go, I'm just going to be posting all our links to Tech Tank. If this is your first Tech Tank event, feel free to use the links to join our groups, and yeah, feel free to use the links to join our groups, and we host a lot of events. We do networking events, study tank, sessions like these, and we do a lot of job seeking things as well, plus mentorship. And yeah, thank you so much, Lydia, again, and good night, everyone.